اسمحوا لي ارحب بالمهندس البوحسين. تحيه مهندس سعيد. بلال حسين كمان تحيه للاستاذ بلال.
طيب خلينا نبدا بس كويك انترو لان هذه اول مره نجي فيها. يمكن الوحيد اللي اعرفه هنا بس سيف، لان اشتغلنا مع بعض قبل فتره بس ما اتوقع اعرف اي احد ثاني، واحمد. ف يعني I'll go through a quick introduction. طبعا راح تكون بين الانجليزي والعربي بس to cover both areas. طبعا انا كنت من مخرجات برنامج الابتعاث، درست في البترول 6 شهور. جت فرصه الابتعاث وقلت يلا خلينا اجرب. كان الهدف بس ان تجربه مختلفه عن اروح الجامعه ارجع البيت، اروح الجامعه ارجع البيت. فوصلت كندا، يعني اخترت راندوملي، ما كان في اي ساينس ولا اي شيء بيهايند، جست كندا مفتوحه خلينا نروح. حتى التخصص كان راندوملي سيلكتد، كنت الكتريكال انجينير في البدايه. وصلت قريت المواد اللي في التخصص، قلت يعني هذا تو ماتش، فغيرت الكمبيوتر انجينير، صرت بين الاثنين، بين تقنيه وبين الكتريكال عشان اخلي الفرص تكون موجوده. كملت، تخرجت، رجعت الرياض 2000 يعني 2013 early 2013 واي وقت في رياض بنك. ذاك الوقت كان ما في تقنيه، كان في جيب من اي بي ام، جيب من ما ادري مين، حاول تخليه يشتغل البنك واللي يحتاجه البنك. ذا واز ات. ف6 شهور I couldn't take it anymore so I went back to Canada did masters. الماسترز ما كانت بلان، كانت بس في واقع صعب شويه مشيت. ف finished my master just to keep it short. بعدين I worked at a startup called Phoenix. And what they do is network automation. In the sense network assurance that fits في التاورز, like the entire networks. You build the software to monitor and see where the problems are and create a dashboard to show where these visually so they can go fix it or depending on the analysis they let it go. Got acquired by Ericsson. Ericsson, the big giant for the towers. We did network automation for the 5G networks for a bit. وبعدين مشيت طبعا من الشركة. بعدين جيت لرسالة. رسالة تعرفت على سيف طبعا. أنا بديت قبله وبعدين طبعا وصل. تجربة رسالة كانت ممتازة وأتوقع أتكلم عنها الشباب في اللقاءات اللي طافت، أن كيف التيم كان صغير وجا تيم سعودي ريموت scaled up the company. From there بعدين جينا على موضوع الرائدة which is today. طبعا الرائدة is an interesting journey راح نتكلم عنها me and Bilal in short a little bit. But that's where I'm today. I'm the head of engineering في الرائدة. يعني the amount of transformation اللي قاعد يصير سواء في الرائدة وغير الرائدة is يعني eye opening and it's more challenging than the stuff I've seen abroad. يعني من ناحية التالنتس، من ناحية available markets, potentials. والشيء الوحيد اللي اقدر اقوله بين التجربتين انه we're starting where they left off. يعني هم وصلوا لمرحله احنا بادين من المرحله اللي هم وصلوا عندها، يعني من كل النواحي، من ناحيه تقنيه، من ناحيه building teams, all aspects. We're taking over the things that worked for them and we're going to scale it. We'll see, we'll make it our own. يعني just to keep it short, I'll let Bilal introduce himself too.
Cool, thank you. So I don't speak any Arabic, so hopefully I don't repeat anything that he started with at the beginning. But so I'm Bilal. I'm the head of product at Al Finance. So a bit of background about me. I started my career at Lloyds Banking Group in the UK. So I'm from the UK, from London. Worked there for about 10 years and just moved to Saudi about 7 or 8 months ago to join Al Raida. I worked at, as I said, Lloyds Banking Group in the product division. That's where I started my career. Actually, I did a graduate scheme, which was a variety of different parts of the bank. I worked in operations, which wasn't too fun. I worked in financial risk, which was the worst 6 months of my life. I could go for 6 months to work. I wouldn't have to talk to a single person. It's just spreadsheets every day. So I didn't enjoy that. Then I did a placement in product, which I really, really enjoyed. I'll tell you more about it in this presentation, but I really enjoyed that. And then I specialized in product. So I worked in SME banking, managing financing products for Lloyds Banking Group. We started off by building the actual core product that we provide to customers. So the actual like the loan product, the overdraft product, we built those from scratch, tailored to the market. So we built that, and we started to sell that product to SMEs in the UK. And then after that, I moved into digital, so the digital side of product. So there's two different sides. I'll talk to you more about that in this presentation, but I moved into digital product, which is all about how we meet customers' needs digitally, how we improve processes within the organization, how we can make everything more efficient, cost efficient for the organization and better meet customer needs. So I did that at Lloyds across a variety of different products. Then I moved to another bank in the UK called Metro Bank. This was a smaller startup bank, so they'd been around for about 10 years. And similar to Al Raida, all of their processes were manual. So to open an account, open a product, you'd have to go to the branch and open it in the branch. No digital process whatsoever. So I went there to create the digital journeys, and we built out some of the core journeys at Metro Bank, from account opening for personal customers, business customers, loan products, credit cards, all of that sort of thing. And then moved on into managing the actual mobile app and internet banking platforms after that. So a little bit more on the technical side. And then last year, about 9 months ago, I moved to Saudi to lead. There was no product team in Al Raida, so I was literally the first hire here to build out our digital capabilities. So just a little bit of information about Al Raida and where we are is we provide at the moment Sharia compliant finance to SMEs within Saudi. And actually, one of the learnings from me coming to Saudi is the challenges that are facing the Saudi market are the exact same challenges that faced the Western markets maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and we started to tackle just slightly earlier. Now, so some of those challenges are around, specifically relating to SMEs, and SMEs, just so you're all aware, small and medium enterprises, so businesses. The challenges were the banks typically have focused on larger corporate customers, because doing one deal with a larger corporate customer is like doing maybe 1,000 deals in the SME space. You know that the corporate customers are safer, they will repay you, so they've targeted those types of customers. SMEs are more complicated, the processes around them are more complicated, to credit score those customers are more complicated, so the cost to serve these customers is extremely high, and the returns are fairly limited. Well, that's how it was. I suppose there's a lot of opportunity in that space. If you can digitize, if you can scale, there's a lot of opportunity there. So the banks have typically focused on the larger corporate customers. And then I guess over the last few years, across Saudi, there's been digitization in the retail market, so allowing account opening online and so forth. And now what will happen is those journeys will start to scale into SME. So they'll use those journeys and apply them to the SME market. But where we fit in is we see that there's an opportunity now that nobody is really meeting SME needs effectively. The banks are focused on the larger corporate customers or retail. SME is like that ignored market. And this is probably everywhere in the world for the reasons that I gave. So we are here to target SMEs and to better help meet their needs, because we think that as part of Vision 2030, they're a massive foundation to sort of help the vision to the sort of extend the economy across Saudi. And so we're here to sort of provide those customers with products that meet their needs in a way that nobody else does. So we'll starting off with financing to create processes and procedures that meet those customer needs. And then after that, we're going to move into additional products as well, so that SMEs can meet all of their needs in one place, which nobody really does in an effective manner at the moment. So that's what we're here to do. And as I said, I started, about 9 months ago, the first person. I think the team's up to about 20 now. And we're hiring. So if you like what we say, you know who to contact after today.
Okay. So maybe a bit of intro of what we're presenting. We're not presenting the company or like the business of the company. It's just a quick intro on the space we operate in. I think it's more on if you want to deliver a value to a customer, whether it's 1 or 100 or 1 million, if you want to scale up to the whole of humanity. There are ways to deliver it, and now the way to deliver is digital. Now, you have to build something, a mobile app, on a website, accessible to everybody who has the internet or even offline to do these things. And the way to structure these teams to meet these needs, there has been a lot of back and forth, especially on the product side. Maybe if even show of hands, whoever here understand what the product team does in a company. Do you fully understand what the product revolves around, what the roles they play? And that's why we're here. And the main goal is to say, if you want to build and scale technology-focused teams that can deliver the value that you're looking for the best way you can. We've experimented a lot in the past few months. We've seen models that failed miserably. We've seen models that kind of work, but they're missing details. So this is just a summary of the findings we have over the last few months. And this is what we're presenting, kind of. Hopefully it's short, and then...
Cool. So make sure you ask questions as we go. So just sort of a summary, right? You guys might hear about sort of product teams, feature teams, a variety of different teams, right? Ultimately, I think the goal and sort of best practices of where an organization wants to land is to have sort of a product team which is solving customer problems, right? Ultimately, as an organization, what you want to do is focus yourself around the customer. And I think that's probably the most important thing, because one of the big reasons companies fail is they have preconceived ideas as to it'll be great to do build X, build Y, build Z, and they'll go away and they'll build it, spend a lot of money on it, but it won't actually give them the outcomes that they were looking to achieve in the first place. So I think the starting point for us about setting up an empowered product team, the first thing that is very, very important is the vision and commercial strategy. The organization has to have a clear vision as to what it's trying to achieve, where its place in the market is, and needs to have a clear commercial strategy as to how it's going to get there. So as an example, in Al-Raida, we are very clear that we're focused on SMEs. We know that we want to meet SME needs in a way that nobody else does. So that is sort of the first and foremost sort of important thing to start your teams, so that anytime you do hire, you know what you're hiring for. When you're designing the teams, you know what you're designing for. So I suppose the first thing for us is like make sure you have a clear commercial strategy as to what you're looking to target. The second thing is hiring out the core team, right? So Ali, do you want to take
Yeah, so the core team, what we mean by the core team is not an engineering team that live within like backend and doing the core functionality for a system. It's the core team that tackles a problem that your customer is facing. From a customer logging in and getting a loan digitally. Like this is one of the problems we have. So you need somebody who can tell you what the problem is, what's its value to the customer, and then that's what the product kind of step in. There is the tech lead in that circle, which is okay, you want to build something, but you know what, it's technically impossible, we can't have it. So that's where the tech lead or the engineer kind of plays that role in that core team. And then you have the designer. The designer is more on the the experience of the user. Do we need to set the experience in a certain way? Maybe the experience doesn't really matter in that circle. So just to have that eye for how would the user use this capability. If you're building a complex capability, you need to make it as simple as possible so people can follow it. Make sure that it's intuitive. They don't have a lot of question marks going through it. So things of that nature. This is what we mean by the core team. Like a core team, you start with these people. They do what we call the discovery phase now, which is let's see how what the solutions that we could have that can solve this problem. That is technologically feasible. That is can meet the customer needs, and then we can present it in a way they could easily accept it. And that's how you grow your team. This is where you start, and then that's how you build your team around. You know what you need from the technology-wise. Now you assess the problem. You know what you need to build. You know what the skills that you need. And I'll let Bilal speak on the product side because there is details to it. But to the engineer, once I participated in solving this problem, I know what I need to do. I know what the solution would look like. Maybe I need back-end engineers. Maybe I need a mobile engineer. Maybe I need whatever engineer, a data scientist or a data engineer. So that's where it starts. Like this is the form. This is the core that tells you what you need to solve that problem.
So yeah, and just to add, so I suppose this is like the starting point. So once you get these 3 roles filled, and we'll give you examples as we go as to what these different roles do. But I suppose once you have these roles filled, the first thing that these guys will do is, I would say, a discovery phase, as Ali said. Within that discovery phase, that's where you carry out your customer journey mapping and your customer need mapping. So understand, and again, as I'll stress again, it's all about the customer here, right? You might want to make profit, you might want to grow the number of loans you do or accounts you sell or whatever it is, but it's about the customer. What does a customer want? Because just because you want to sell accounts or loans doesn't mean the customers will come to you. So it's all about where do you fit for the customer. So you'd carry out your customer journey mapping and your customer need mapping. And in that process, so this is like what we call discovery. So within that, you would go in and you would identify. So we've just done it for Al-Rider, for example. So let's say one of our objectives is that we want to grow the organization. We do financing for SMEs. We want to grow the amount of financing that we do. The first thing we did was, okay, so let's map out the customer journey, right? So the customer wants to identify what they want. They want a loan. Where are they going to go? The first place that they're going to go is a bank, is their bank, right? If they don't get the loan for their bank, that's when they're going to look into other alternatives, such as Al-Rider and so forth. So straight away, you can think about, okay, so they're going to go to their bank first. How do we become that person that they go to first, right? So maybe we need to offer other products which bring customers to us first before they have a financing need, because not 100% of SMEs need a loan, but they all do need payments capabilities or an account or something to manage their business. So there's gateway products that potentially we can move into. So one of the problems is, how do we make ourselves the primary contact for customers? Another example is when they're looking for finance, they have to go through very, very long processes. They have to provide a lot of documentation, bank statements, CR numbers, a variety of things. How can we make it easier for them? Because they'll just give up. If they know they need to go and find 10 different documents and provide it, how do we make that journey simpler for them so that the process is easier for them? Another element is around the credit decisioning. It's hard for organizations to make decisions as to how much to give to a customer because they don't have the models in place. So then that's another problem. So what we do in this exercise is we identify what are the problems for customers, and you then create teams based around those problems to solve those problems. Because what I have seen in the past from experience is the CEO of a company or somebody senior might say, let's build this feature or let's build this. And you can go away and you can build it, but their intention as to why they thought they were building that feature might have been something completely different to what the team actually built. So this is where product really come in, and I'd say they are there to really understand the business need, what the business problem is, to define that business problem, and then bring in the sort of tech lead and product designer to work together with them to say, okay, if this is the problem, we know what the problem is, what are our options to solve this? There might be option A, which the designer might spend a lot of time and say, and this is why all 3 roles are critically important and working together is important. The designer may go away and design the best journey in the world. And the tech guy might come in and say, yeah, this is going to take me 1 year to build. From a product perspective, we know that that is not going to be viable from a business perspective. Let's say that feature that they're going to build might release 100,000 SAR worth of value to the organization. Then there might be initiative 2, which will give us £1 million worth of benefit, but it might only take 2 months. So the product manager there is to really understand what the value to the organization is and the viability. So on the right-hand side, it's all about the value and the viability of doing something. They need to understand sort of the regulation, the customer, to really understand what the customer needs, how this will work for both the organization and for customers. The designer is there to make sure that we're testing it with users. So we don't build something and at the end, for example, we've been building some very, very basic stuff recently, and we think this is so simple. You put it in front of a customer and it's like, what the hell are you guys talking about? We don't understand it. So that's the importance of design, to have a good designer there to help us design things in a way that customers really appreciate. And doing that from the beginning is so important and I suppose the model that we use with the designers is we do prototyping very, very early in the journey. So you don't go away, provide requirements to the engineers. They don't build something for 3 months and then you test it and we rebuild. So prototyping early, doing that testing early before you even get anything to the engineers is very important. But throughout this, the engineers will be giving us ideas as to, from a feasibility perspective, yeah, this is roughly what this will take. We have this capability. We can build this for you. So these three working together to do that discovery phase and customer journey mapping and solving problems is really, really important. Because as I said, the designer might want to design the best journey ever. The product manager may have three things that they want to do, which can each deliver the same amount of value to customers. But then the tech lead will tell you, this will take me 1 month, this will take me 2 months, this will take me 3 months. So these guys working together and prioritizing together. I think one of the mistakes that organizations made maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago was they put a product manager in charge of like a feature team to say, you prioritize, you decide what you're going to build, the designer will make it look pretty, and the tech lead will just go and build it. That's not efficient. So these guys working together from the beginning is very, very important. And then moving on to the final point then, OKRs, so objectives and key results and business cases. So once you have, I suppose, just go recapping. So you've got the business strategy, you know what the team is there to come in and do for you. You've hired the core team, these three roles, to identify what are the key pain points, what are the things that we can do. You've estimated those, you've prioritized them after you're doing your customer journey mapping. You then create your benefits cases. So for these initiatives, what are the outcomes that I think we can drive? You would use as much data as you can to identify. So as an example, we know that maybe, let's just say as an example, for every 100 customers that come to Al Raida, 5 take out a loan, right? We need to spend a lot of money to reach those 100 customers in the first place. How do I turn that 5 into 20 or 30 or 40, right? So you need to have clear sort of business cases and outcomes that you want to drive, and then you need to track those things to make sure, and especially when you're creating the teams in the first place. So I've just come in, the CEO and the chief commercial officer that we work with, they haven't got as much experience from a digital perspective. They've been mainly running the running the organization and the banks that they've worked at in a particular way. They haven't done it digitally. So they're like, okay, you want, for example, we've got the team up to 20 now. I think we just proposed that we increase it to 40. They're like looking at how much this is going to cost them. But then if you have clear business cases to say, this is the value that we're going to give you, this is all the benefits we're going to give you, it helps to make those decisions. And then once we start to deliver, and you start small, you always start small. So stress again, start with this, and then you hire resources incrementally. Once you start to prove that, okay, look, I said I was going to do initiative 1, this is what I forecast, I met the forecast, now I'm going to do 2, you build that trust, and you go from there. Yeah.
Do you prefer to take questions now?
No, yeah, ask as we go.
So you mentioned here like one very important thing around building products is to make it customer-centric. So start with your customer in mind first. And you mentioned like one of the tangible ways you do to do that is like prototyping and customer testing before even you get that to the team, technical team. Have you ever thought of pulling actually the technical team to meet the customers, the actual customers, dig deeper into the environments where the customer is actually working, give them an idea of why are they building this?
Absolutely, I think that's really, really important. And actually why we've stressed, like, I know we haven't talked about the wider team, but like why we've trying to stress that like the tech lead, for example, needs to be in those meetings. He needs to see what the customer's feedback is up front. So he really understands from a customer perspective. And as you grow the teams, absolutely, the customer, you need to be able to see what the customer is saying. Understanding the business is so important. And I suppose this is where a lot of businesses fall down, where it is that model where the designer completely understands what the customer is feeling and thinking as they're trying something. They tell the product manager says, okay, this makes sense, or it doesn't. And then engineers, I made this decision, do it. So that model doesn't work, and that's where mistakes will get made. And also, when the tech team really understand the customer, and not just the customer, it could, because your customer could be an end customer digitally, it could be an internal user. They need to understand the business as well, right? So for example, we're building a journey for customers, but we're also building behind it. So let's say we're going to build an onboarding journey, so the customers can apply for products. We're going to build that, but behind it, there'll be a colleague platform so that we can optimize customers going through the journey. Anytime a customer drops out, we can see it, we can help them through the journey, pick it up. So customer service is very important to us. We're going to be doing that. If your tech team understand what the colleagues are trying to do, understand the journey, when it comes to creating let's say we're creating a feature, they will really understand what the feature is designed to do and what we want it to do, as opposed to reading a user story and some acceptance criteria.
And then maybe just a comment on like the value of an engineer understanding the business side of things. So engineers love to live in that world of just leave me to this, I'm going to build it the best way I can. If you step back a little bit and you just think about the use case that you're trying to solve, don't think about the feature or the programming language or the programming problem ahead of me that I need to solve. This will make you, if I can put it in a way, like a better engineer, that you're actually building something with a purpose that then will fit in with an entire ecosystem. The model that probably some of the companies have in the past is, like Bilal said, you have the business, you have the product, and then eventually it falls to the engineers, they go and build it. And then a lot of back and forth, this is not how we want it, and this is where the conversation can take the engineer from their desk, put them into that customer environment, see, this is why it's not working. I've been trying to convince you that it doesn't work, but the engineers are very practical. That works. My unit tests are passing, everything in the pipeline is green, so it works. They'll come back to me. You said you want this with this outcome, I gave it to you. But that understanding of the usability of what they're building adds that extra layer of, you know what, maybe even the requirement that got to me has a mistake in it, because I know they said they want X, and I said I'm going to build it in this way, but then if I build it in this way that I'm building right now, I don't think I'm going to fulfill that need that they're asking me for. I'm going to be missing a case, I'm going to be missing something that the user is looking for. So it builds that extra layer of understanding, and you take it within the code itself. Like when you write code, you can think, okay, maybe this is not what they meant. Let me go back and ask. And we had these discussions. Like we had this situation happening probably every day. Mm-hmm. We do the requirements together. We go back. We're going to start working on it, and then wait. There's something missing here that I think we have to address, and it's not going to cover something, or it's going to break whatever we have before. So it's very crucial to have that general understanding of what you're building. Just purely speaking, engineering and a technical person. And this is why it's very crucial. It's very crucial for you, it's very crucial for the organization, and for everybody else.
And me, because if my guys ever miss anything, these guys are picking it up. So then when it comes to actually delivering, the guys will have be covered. So it's really, it makes the whole team a lot more efficient. So it's very important.
So you start with the commercial strategy, known what this is particular, and then you identify some problems that you tackle, and then you establish the core team who's working on this problem. Are you establishing a core team for each problem that you're trying to tackle, so you can simultaneously see what best would work best for you and start from there?
I'm smiling because that's the exact thing we've been tackling this week. The question that you just asked. So what we did was we grouped. It's interesting because I presented that literally at 4:30 to our CEO today, just before this, which is why we were a bit late. What we did was, the first thing we did was we aligned on some principles that we wanted to set up the team by, right? So for example, our principles were, we wanted to have a simple team to begin with, to make sure everybody understood what we were trying to do. We wanted clear ownership and accountability as well, so that somebody could own a problem end to end. And once we had like our 2 or 3 principles, what we then did was we looked at, okay, how can we group these problems into different areas? And when you group the problems into different areas, you'll see what is simple and what is, and I guess where a team will be empowered to make decisions. So let me just tell you what we're doing. So I suppose we had a variety of issues when it came to financing. We had challenges when it comes to customers onboarding with us, so new customers trying to apply for us. And then we had different challenges around how do we make sure that customers are repaying us quickly, that they are repaying, that the customers that are repaying, how do we get them to apply for finance again? I mean, they could have gone anywhere. They've ended up with us. If it's working for them and it's helped them grow, and there's so much opportunity in Saudi right now, right? If for a business to set up, if you have the finance, there's so much opportunity. So if we can help them further, how do we best get those customers to apply for additional funding with us, right? And where we got to is we looked at our principles, we grouped the problems into different categories, and where we ended up with was we're going to start with a team who is going to look at the end-to-end onboarding journey and manage all the problems from start to finish with onboarding. And then we're going to have a separate team that is going to deal with all of the problems to do with our existing customers, right? So that's how we grouped it to begin with. And again, this is going to allow us the simplicity. And what it will mean is, as we're starting, right, we're a startup now, we're starting this journey and we're starting these teams. By splitting it into those things, what we can do is we can pick the biggest problems from an onboarding perspective. What are the 2 or 3 biggest problems? Where you have multiple teams, you might have let's say we have 5 teams. They might all be working on 5 different problems that is in their scope or remit. But maybe all 3 of the biggest things we could have done were with one team. So what we have the benefit of doing is saying, let's have one team that's responsible end-to-end for onboarding, all of the problems to do with that, let them solve them, let them identify what the biggest pain points are and the quickest things we can solve. And for existing customers, what you don't want as well is context switching. You don't want somebody thinking from oh, this customer's trying to get a loan to how am I going to get the customer to repay. So context switching is important as well. So we had the existing customer team who were dealing with all those problems. So we grouped the problems, we had our principles, and we applied them. So we started off with 2 teams. Where I've worked in the past, we started off with that and we moved to you have a team on payments, you have a team on loans and finance, you have a team, but you don't start there. You start with what are the biggest problems for you as an organization to solve with the least resources and efficiently, right? And then from there, once you have delivered that, once you've learned, because I suppose it's safe to say, we've been doing this for about 6 months now, and every month we're coming up with ideas to improve. If we hired 5 teams and we're paying for 5 teams and they were delivering nothing, it would have been, our chairman would have been on our back and our CEO would have been on our back. So it's start small, get things right, take the learnings, and then start to increase the team. So we've been doing stuff on the existing customers for the last 6 months, and now we're ready to move into, in the next couple of months, start to manage the new customer process. So yeah. Answer your question?
Maybe just something on top of what Bilal just mentioned. You have to keep, you have to know that this is where you start. And then where you end up is a different conversation. Maybe you start with 2 teams, you end up with 10, 20. You have to have that mentality too. I know I'm starting here, but this is not the end. This is just me just figuring out what I need to do. Let me see the side of the problem, what type of problems I'm dealing with, what kind of other solutions I could even incorporate to, take it from X to, from, let's say, 10% satisfactory level to 20 to 30, and then eventually hit that mark. Doing all of this requires a lot of flexibility, both from the organization and the people who are actually handling that transformation. Because you're going to try and you're going to fail multiple times. And you probably even think that this solution, me and Bilal thought of a solution that was the perfect solution in our heads at the time. But then we're glad we did not take that solution. Mm-hmm. So it just requires a lot of trial and error, and no failure of it. You're not scared of making mistakes, and then just be flexible. You know that this is going to keep changing. Today it's X, tomorrow it's going to be Y.
Yeah. Cool. The next one we were going to cover, the next area we were going to cover was the difference between the 2 roles. I think we've covered most of this, but just so if you guys weren't aware, the difference between a product manager and product designer. So I guess the product manager would lead sort of on the strategy of the organization, make sure that the scope of the team aligns to sort of the commercial strategy. They are the ones that are responsible at the end of the day for the success criteria, so the OKRs that I mentioned, understanding the customer data, getting the dashboard set up to make sure you really understand the business and where the value lies. That is the responsibility of the product manager. And then they will work with the designer on sort of, mapping out customer journeys, how we can improve things, how we can, the customer journey mapping there, how we can create prototypes quickly, test them with customers to identify if customers like them, do the usability testing and so forth. And then there's some areas which you work on together. So for example, the initial user research, you both need to understand the customer really well. You need to understand the use cases or the problem statements together. So you work really, really, really closely together, but there are sort of clear and distinct roles and responsibilities within the team and skills. One of the conversations we were having with our chief commercial officer was, do you need both of these roles separated? And like if we go back, it's like it's clear that the product manager is there. Like everybody needs to have a clear agenda. And it's like in any sort of like whether it's a political system or whatever it is, you need checks and balances. So this model, these are the checks and balances. The designer will be kept in sort of check by the product manager by the tech lead, and vice versa. So,
but there is a but in that. The but is you don't always need a product designer when the problem doesn't require visual representation to it. Let's say you're tackling a purely back-end problem. And in our case, maybe a problem with some balances or something that really just within a back-end environment where the front end is designed somewhere else. Like it's just that. Like there is a problem in the software that keeps our balances. So things of that nature that you wouldn't require a designer for. What would the designer do? Like you're not seeing that somewhere. You're just tackling a bug in your, let's say, core software that kind of does the bookkeeping on a few things. So the product designer is needed absolutely for the majority of the discoveries, but some discoveries don't require a designer to be there because it's just a waste of resource at that time. So it's just something that we found out recently too. Look, we have the designers, but some of the issues we had to tackle at this early stage do not require a designer to be there. And that's how we kind of started to see the distinctions between the manager and the designer at the time.
Yeah, but the product manager and tech lead is very, very important. Yes. On anything, they need to be there. The product manager on, okay, is this valuable for us? Should we be prioritizing this? Will it lead to value? Put some numbers against it. And the tech lead on, okay, so this is what it's going to cost us to do this. So just moving on. Okay, so at the beginning, when I introduced myself, I said that there's two sides to product. And so I just wanted to cover that because, and I suppose this is an area which a lot of people and a lot of organizations struggle with. I suppose what I'll do is I'll start by just highlighting some principles on how you would want to design a team or roles and responsibilities, right? The first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to have specialization, right? You'd want the ability, specialization and knowledge. I'll group them together. You'd want somebody to be an expert in the field and what they're doing, right? You'd want to enable sort of innovation so that if somebody was tackling a problem one day, they can quickly shift to another problem without having to sort of completely change their job. So you'd want to sort of drive specialization and knowledge by having people focus on very particular things. And clear remits, and you wouldn't want that remit to be too large. And then you'd want ownership. So you'd want them to have ownership of anything that is within their remit. So what most companies have done and moved to is sort of splitting out some of these roles and responsibilities. So what I've done is on the left-hand side, you have product managers, and on the right-hand side, you have digital product managers. Now, product managers on the left, this is where I started my career. Let's take the example of a loan product, right? The product managers will be responsible for the pricing of that product. There'll be responsibility for the profitability, what are the competitors pricing this product at, what should I price it at, if I change the pricing slightly, how many more customers would I get if I reduced it, and so forth, like pricing sensitivity. They would also be responsible for like, what is the credit risk? What's the credit risk? How many of our customers are defaulting or behind? Do we need to change something from our risk perspective to make sure that we're profitable? So they're responsible for pricing and profitability. They're also responsible for things in relation to the proposition as a whole. So a loan might be a bad example, but let's say in the UK, for example, you can have a bank account. And there's different types of bank accounts. With different bank accounts, you might have free travel insurance, or you might have mobile phone insurance, or car insurance, or whatever it is. So there's features, etc., that the product managers would manage. There will be, and again, it's important for this person to manage this because some of that will require contracts with third parties where you're paying for facilities. So how do you price this for the customer? If I'm paying a third party something to do for mobile phone insurance, let's say I'm paying 10 SAR for them per month for phone insurance, how much am I pricing this for the customer, considering on top of that, I'm going to have calls in relation to this. I have to build a journey so they can apply for this. It's my cost. So they're the ones that are doing all of that, the profitability and the business case, right? They're the ones that are responsible for creating the forecasts, agreeing those forecasts with management, tracking that. As an example, let's say we're a finance company and Al-Raji increased their rate. If they increase their rate, I might start getting loads of customers, but then I might say, you know what, I could charge a little bit more and make some more money here. So they're responsible for tracking competitors and then always like making sure that the pricing is optimal. And then they're responsible for, like, from a marketing perspective, working with the marketing team, designing sort of the collateral, so the brochures, the content on the websites, how we explain the product, the terms and conditions. They need to be experts on the actual loan product. Now, they'll work then on the right-hand side very, very closely with the digital product managers, right? And the digital product managers here are responsible for, I suppose, these guys are saying, I want to do, let's say, 1 million SAR worth of lending this year. Now, the digital guys will say, okay, so that's it. You're tracking your profitability. You're looking at the market. We know that the product's good. You've made sure that you're giving us a competitive product. How do I now help you to deliver that 1 million worth of SAR? So I'm here as a team. So what can I do? So what is my strategy as my team? So you would align on the OKRs with whatever forecast that these guys have said to say, okay, so you want to do 1 million SAR. In order to do 1 million SAR, I know I need to bring in 1,000 customers. To bring in 1,000 customers, I know my conversion rates are 10%. So I need 10,000 customers. I'll work with marketing to say, marketing, or to the product manager, you to give me 10,000 leads and I'll convert them. Let's say I'm not there. What are the things that I can do to improve my conversion rates to help you achieve that? What are the biggest things that I can do and I can change? And in sort of on the roll on the left, in blue, you really need to understand the customer's behavior from when they're looking for a product or they're looking at a journey, trying to apply for a product, etc. So you need to understand them in a different way to the product managers and revenue managers on the left. You need to understand sort of the customer data around all of the journeys to identify where the biggest value sits. You need to have understanding of the business. So I think Ali mentioned there's somebody here who doesn't like product too much. So you need to understand the business. So if you don't have a product manager, will the engineer know when you're designing a journey, is this compliant with regulations? Is it going to meet the stakeholder needs? If they're going and focusing on all of these different things, how are they going to ever get the time to actually sit down and code the thing that is required? They're not going to. So it's really important to have these different roles, focus, and you build that speciality. So a good product manager, he will know straight away, okay, you want to increase sales by this much. I know that the next best thing for me to do is X, because from the data, I'm seeing this is where the problems are. They will work with the designers, etc., to design the journey, as we talked about. And again, these guys, from an industry perspective, where the product managers are looking at pricing changes, we're looking at, okay, so what's best in class? So like, one thing that I've always done in my career is I've worked in financial services my whole life, right? But when I look at what does good look like, I look at other industries. It's not about like how can you compete with banks. How can you take ideas from other industries to say, wow, this is really good. How can I use this and do that? So for example, we're redesigning our website right now. The existing one is really, really bad. So, yeah, I told the people that designed it, it is very bad. So don't judge us on the website. We're redesigning it at the moment. But we're looking at other industries altogether, because like whenever you go to a finance company or somebody in financial services, they explain the background about their company, how long they've been around, all of this other stuff. Customers don't care about that. Customers are there to be like, this is what I need. Do you guys provide this? Can I get a quote for a loan, for example? And so like if you think about when you're booking travel, right? The first thing you go on, whoever you go on to, it's just literally, it's like flights, hotels, put your destination is, you're going to get a quote. You're not going to care about like how long that company's been around and how many customers they have and stuff like this. So it's stuff like that. On Amazon, like the sort of the process of checkouts and stuff like that, how easy and how simple it is. It's like there's things that I've taken from other industries, and where the product managers on the left-hand side are focused on like customer needs from a product perspective, these guys are looking at industry and looking at what are the best things that we can bring in and understand. And then obviously the engineers, I know, will be focused on other things, like what are the best languages we can use and so forth. How can we best design these sort of microservices and stuff. So speciality is really important. So I just wanted to split out these two different roles. And actually, recruitment's been really, really tough for me here. I've been trying to hire product managers since I've got here, actually. And you look at job specs out there, and they're so broad, you won't be able to tell which role the people are doing. And actually, what you see is when I've actually interviewed people, even people with 4, 5, 6 years worth of experience, like, they couldn't tell me what they do across this. They couldn't. Product is something relatively new. Across digital, especially in Saudi, has been sort of kicking off over the last 2-3 years on the main. But I don't think people are doing it particularly well here. But I think if it's something to take away, just like take away this. That it's like product managers who focus on the actual product, and then there's product managers who look at business problems and how to optimize the delivery of those products and the revenue-generating products for the organization. So those are two different sides for me. Any questions on that? No? Cool. And finally, this is the last slide. This is our change process. So I think Ali mentioned this briefly earlier on, but I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, you can get a range of good ideas that can come to you from like your CEO, whoever it is, to say, build me this, right? What we've established is sort of a governance framework where that idea comes in, it goes straight. First, we've got a committee called Change Advisory Board where the key individuals from an organization, they sit and they prioritize the changes. So they'll explain, so this is why we want something. It's not just about delivering a feature, they'll explain it to us. And we'll have like a discovery phase to begin with. So we'll say, okay, that's the idea. The 3 roles that we said, they will work on discovery. So the tech lead, the product manager, the designer, they'll work together. They will also, where there is an existing organization, they'll work with the operational teams to say, you gave me this problem, let me understand your process so I can understand exactly what your problem is. And then they'll design some outcomes, some options, they'll look at the options. And within the sort of discovery phase, there's a list of sort of things that you need to do, from sort of understanding market, understanding the needs and requirements, understanding how, from a technical perspective, how long this will take us. Let's say we agree that this is really important. We need, let's just say, in terms of effort, this is like 100 points of effort. You could do that 100 points of effort over 12 months, or you could do that 100 points of effort over 3 months, depending on how many resources you have. So what we do is, after the design and define stage, we do the business case, we go back, we say, look, this is what it will take. Do we want to prioritize it? We compare it to, so every month we'll have this change advisory board. You'd have one for discovery. At the end of discovery, before you move into the delivery of actually doing it, you'll sit down and say, guys, this is the benefits case, this is what we can do for you. We sit down again, because there may be like 10 discoveries going on at the same time on 10 different issues. So you'd sit down again, you'd agree, okay, these are the business cases, these are the benefits cases, you'll compare and you'll say, because no organization has unlimited resources, you would say, these are the ones we're going to prioritize. And then before we prioritize, we'll sit there and we'll all sort of agree on it together. And then we move into delivery, which is largely Ali's side. So delivery, just to put things into context, I'm not going to say this is the role of a tech lead, because I think we have a lot of talks even here just to explain that role. So what happens next? Like, just brief idea of what goes into delivering the problem that we promised now we have a solution for. We went through the practices. So this is where a tech lead will come in. A tech lead will own the problem. It might be the same tech lead. Maybe the tech lead that worked on the problem left, but there has to be a tech lead owning the issue. Whatever the issue is, it's the entire customer pain that we're trying to solve. So once they own it, whether it's with the 2 buckets that we have or the 10 buckets when we evolve, wherever it falls. It might fall within multiple buckets, and that's something you have to work with. But it has to have one clear technical owner to take it end to end, whether he works with or she works with multiple owners or multiple leads, multiple teams. That's just execution detail. So taking that, the first thing you would look at is, how can I fit this within the overall ecosystem I have?
Am I following, for example, we're following microservices. And I think most companies are leaning towards it. Where does it fall? Do I need to create a new service for this? What does it look like? How would it fit? What data could I store in it? What technologies now I need to leverage in order to make sure I build a software that I can maintain? I'm not building something and then dropping it tomorrow. So it goes into these practices or these, let's say, checkboxes. And then eventually you create the work. Because the work at the end, when you program it and write it, that's the easiest. That's the easy part. You know what you're writing. You're writing a function that takes X and returns Y. Two endpoints that does this and that. That's easy. The hard thing is, how do you fit this entire thing within the big picture? Because like we said, you're solving a problem that might have some bits and pieces of it solved by another problem that we tackled 2 months ago. So you have to have that knowledge of the system you're dealing with. What can it do? What's its capabilities? How can I extend it? Maybe I can have to rework it. So all these practices and back and forth too, you could call it a tech discovery on the actual problem you're trying to solve, like another discovery phase, purely in the tech world to see how do I fit this, how do I design it. And then we get the product involved in every step of the way. We're building it this way. This is what you're going to see. This is what you could expect. Is that what you're looking for? We have to keep, like, this question is really important when you execute, to go back early in time and say, okay, this is what you're looking for or something else. Are you actually looking to do this or you mean something else? So you have to keep the product team engaged throughout the delivery process. I know in Agile there is demos at the end of every sprint. That's not enough. The demo is, like, we spent 2 weeks working on this, and now, okay, we built the wrong thing. Like, we understood it in a different way, and now we built it. We went 2 weeks into it, and oh, Bilal, this is what we have. Oh wait, this is not what I meant. You have to go back and redo it. So keep them engaged every step of the way. At least what we do now is, I see engineers talking to product leads more than engineers talking to engineers. So that kind of communication makes sure that what we're delivering is we're on the same page. We've created the problem together, we solved it together, now we have to do the delivery kind of in sync as well. So this is what kind of the delivery involvement of it. And then you have your roles of a tech lead, and then juniors and seniors, and each playing their own role. A problem I even span across 5 teams in the company. If we get to that level and then we span it to 5, then there's one coordinator, which is the tech lead, at the top overseeing the entire thing. And you have to say, you're a mobile team, you built this. This is what I need from the back end. This is what I need on the website. This is what I need integration-wise. But there has to be one that kind of manages the entire thing so the context doesn't get lost throughout the process. So this is kind of where that delivery is very critical. Like, we're always in a hurry to deliver things, and we need to deliver the correct product at the end. And we have to keep the product team engaged, whether it's a product owner or a product designer, or even the business side, to just have their input on, did we do the pricing right? Is this calculation is what you're looking for? Is it wrong? So that's where the delivery it's the biggest headache after the discovery. And then at the end, I know this says closed, but this is not really closed as maintenance. So this is what we mean by we finished it, it's done, it's live, the people are using it. But then how can we make it better? There are some performance issues with it. Like, the entire maintenance cycle is forever. Unless that product is no longer needed and it's dead, then you can kill it and move on. But as long as it's there, live, you have to keep maintaining it. And the same thing with the maintenance goes across. Maybe the maintenance creates another issue we have to tackle, discover it, and move it across the pipeline. But you always have to have this cycle.
Yeah. But just to add to what Ali said, 2 things I would add to that is, the first one is we definitely run like sprints. You don't want to deliver something and then, I know Ali says we talk all the time, but even that 2 weeks cadence to say, this is the update. They might be able to talk to the product team every day or every other day because we're working on things together, but you need to show the business. You need to show other members of the organization to say, this is what we've delivered, get their feedback. So delivering, we're working in sort of sprints to make sure that everyone's updated, that you're actually delivering the right things, you're on the right trajectory is very, very important. Also, it allows you to monitor how quickly the team are delivering. So if, for example, you start to see drop-offs in speed, you can pick them up, right? So when you work in sprint, you can see in sprint 1, we worked on sort of 10 elements of this feature. In sprint 2, we only worked on 3, like what happened, what went wrong. So it's like sprint, it helps you to do that. And then the second thing I was going to mention is test. we had a great example of the organization, this is being recorded, so I shouldn't even say it, but they started a project before I joined, and they outsourced the project, and they gave some requirements to this third party to build us a tool. That company spent, like, let's say 4 or 5 months building the tool, and then they gave it back to us at the end of the 4 or 5 months, and they said that they tested it, but this is when the real testing came in, where we actually hired a testing team to actually do the testing, and there were bugs and issues everywhere. And we tried to fix the bugs for about 2 to 3 months. He told me not to bother, but I was like, no, we need to get it done. Yeah, for 2 to 3 months we tried to, and then we managed to get it into live. And as soon as we got into live, like 2 days later, it broke again. So like we just had to cut our losses eventually. But the importance of testing as you go. You don't wait to test at the end. It's really important that, let's say you're building a feature, it might have 10 different elements to it. You must test each one individually throughout. So like, well, from a test perspective, we make sure that the testers are involved. As soon as we've got the story done, before we started dev, the testers are involved to say, okay, these are the things I need to test. They write all of their scripts, the scenarios that they're going to test. They agree them with the product manager, and then they will start to test it within the sprint to make sure, okay, it's past the initial, it's past it. It does what you said it would do. But then from another element, so like there's 2 sides to testing as well. So like there's manual tests, but as you start to scale teams, you don't want to hire people to do manual testing. So we've got our manual testers, and then we've also got our automation testers there. So whatever we're building, they'll build the automation scripts so that from the beginning, you can start to build up that pipeline of automation. So that is something that's really, really important, because otherwise, he could be showing me every 2 weeks, and look, it looks amazing. It's doing what you said, what you wanted. But then when you come to test, you realize that there's so many issues with this. And when you start to build on top of code, as you guys will all know, there's going to be issues when you sort of merge code and so forth, right? One thing will break something else. So
even to take it to another level, testers should be even involved when it comes to, I would say, batch the discovery. And we know the problem, and then the tech lead said, okay, I'm going to leverage 2 new technologies to solve it. The testers will need ramp-up time on these. Let's say we've used 10 new technologies that we haven't seen before. For the tester to get it at that level, when, okay, this is the story, I'm going to test it, and now I see 10 different tools that I haven't touched in my life. How would I go into test this and be able to assure you that this is the thing you're looking for within the time frame? I can't do it. So at that level, even at between the design, define, and then the delivery, the testers have to be involved at some point. Just to say, okay, this is something we haven't seen before. We're adding new technology, we're adding a new parameter to the ecosystem, and now we need to make sure we're covered. And then testers will say, I haven't seen this, we might need to take courses on it, we might need ramp-ups. And so they at least go and test informed at the end. They're not surprised and trying to catch up. And from there, everything will start to slip. The developer will say, I know about this a month ago, I've learned everything. I'm now building it, I'm handing it over for you to test. But the tester is surprised. What would I do with this? Now I have to go back a month in time and try to ramp up to all the learning you've been doing in order to test this simple feature. Probably simple, but to test it you need a lot of stuff. So it's important to get everybody involved if you think you need them at any stage. We said the core must be there. There might be other factors to that core that you need to add in order to make sure you have a successful delivery at the end, because that's what matters. And DevOps as well. DevOps have to be involved too, because they might have to deploy a new technology they haven't seen before in a new platform. Maybe it's in Kubernetes, maybe it's not. So they have to be at least told that this is what we're using, and let them at least have their initial assessment and say, okay, we can work with this, or we can't do anything about it. And that's part of the technical lead that kind of bring in all these kind of roles to the core discovery. You could tell very much if you're kind of exploding with technologies to solve that problem, or you're just using within the norms of that everybody kind of used to. So it's important to just keep that in mind as well.
And then finally, just to wrap up, then the last thing that's just so important is that benefits case, right? Like you started with an idea that was going to deliver, you said was going to deliver something. You need to be able to track it. So you track has it released that value? If it hasn't, why has it not? So within whatever you're doing, like for example, I'm talking to Ali now, we need to build our tracking capabilities into anything that we're doing so we can identify where there's drop-offs, where things aren't working. But it's really, really important because if you don't track the benefits and see if they align to what you forecast, you're going to lose trust from sort of your superiors, and it will lead to sort of budget cuts and so forth and stuff like that, right? So for you to sort of to make sure that you are working efficiently, it's just really, really important to constantly do that, constantly track the benefits, and maybe start to, like for example, I always say be conservative. I'm always conservative within my forecast to make sure that it makes me look better, right? But you should always do that. Yeah, and
I'm more conservative than
yeah, but yeah, that's really it, guys. So, any questions?
The best change in market, I think, so, based on the roadmap, how do you handle the changing in the market, regulations, and demand, and everything?
Cool. Yeah, market's constantly changing, absolutely. But we always go back to what's the customer problem, right? If there's a customer problem, we need to solve it, and we need to solve it fast, which is so important. It's at that speed, right? Which is why you don't focus on something for 6 to 12 months, because that problem might have been solved by 5 different companies in that time, which is why we say, like, start off by doing a discovery. Like a discovery, on some things it might take 2 weeks, on some things it might take 4 weeks, but it's doing that to identify what the opportunity is, and once you've done that, then to scale the teams in a way that you deliver things in a timely manner, and doing all the things that we said, doing agile, testing as you go. Like we've never said we're going to build something that is going to be 12 months away. It's always like 3-4 months, and MVP has to be out, right? So that's really important. In terms of regs, though, that's a very, very good point. And we, for example, on our roadmap, before we even started anything, we've gone and talked to SAMA, for example, and said, this is what's coming. This is what our plans are. Are you okay with it? In some cases, they said you need actually our approval to do some. In other cases, they said, okay, this is fine what you're doing, but you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z before you go live. So we built all of those things into our project plan. And for example, we need to do some things in relation to cybersecurity. We gave those requirements to Ali right up front to say, Ali, we're going to have these requirements from SAMA. Let's build them into our plan now and do them now, rather than, because the process at the moment, for example, is if we want to launch a mobile app, we need to give it to SAMA. It'll go into their sandbox. It'll get tested. Who knows how long they're going to take to get back to us. If they get back to us and say, after 3 months of it sitting with them, and they say, you need to do X, Y, and Z, that's going to mean that we're then going to have to start again, and it will delay us. So we're doing that engagement up front, so across the board. So we've got like our legal compliance teams. And this meeting, like, it's called Change Advisory Board, but it's just so important. So anytime you have an idea, all of your key stakeholders, legal, compliance, credit, operations, sales, like you name it, they're in that meeting. So when we're saying we're going to do something, they know up front. And before we start building it, they know. So they can say, if you guys have got anything to say it now. Otherwise, don't tell me in 6 months' time, because then it'll be on you. So it's about giving people that ownership and responsibility and making sure you're bringing people into the right conversations at the right time.
Hi, first of all, welcome to Saudi. I hope
Thank you.
you're well. You talked about a clear framework and how to hire the first 3 people. How about the second 3 people?
Okay, cool. So on my side, it's probably a little bit easier, to be fair. So I hire the product managers and designers and so forth. I've worked in products, so that element is fairly easy for me. What I realized from my side was, when we started doing things, I initially had a product manager, and then some of the requirements got very, very technical very quickly. So I could see when we're having the initial conversations, I'm like, I know what this person's capability, some of this comes from experience. I know what this person's capability is. I know they're not going to be able to go in and do all of these technical requirements as well. And that's where, even like there are some sort of frameworks, for example, where you don't have business analysts. So like my chief commercial officer, he read up on this framework. He said that role doesn't exist. I'm like, okay, it doesn't. But if you don't give me this person, it's going to take me 12 months to do this rather than 3. So some of that comes from experience. And then on the engineering side, I'll let Ali answer, but the main thing is that he's going to do the estimations. I will say, I need this done in 3 months, so he'll be able to tell me how many people we need to do that, but I'll let him elaborate.
Yes, so for engineering, it's pretty much the same. Like, it doesn't change most of the times. You get a problem. We've sat. We say, okay, we're going to do it X, Y, Z. And then you say, okay, now if I'm an engineer, I'm going to create this. Who do I need to deliver this for me? It might touch backend. Okay, a backend engineer. Is this going to live on the mobile app? Is this going on web? Is it going on both? If it goes on both, then you need both skills in that team. Let's see, how are we going to deploy this? Do we need DevOps expertise in this, or is it just extension to whatever we have deployed?
What you're answering is how are you resourcing? But what I'm asking is, I hired a designer, but
Yes.
now I need another designer. Well, at first, I hired a maker, right?
Okay.
So I'm making, but right now I'm growing, so these roles are changing into more leadership.
Sure.
How do you manage
But
that
again,
scale?
you go back to the problem. What problem are you trying to solve? Always fall back to say, okay, that designer one is tackling problem one. And now I've grown, I have 10 more problems. Maybe designer can take 3. I need designer 2 to take care of the rest. So it always goes back to that initial thing we're trying to solve and how big it can get. Maybe you start with something that's really tiny. Maybe a month into it, it gets into 10 other problems. And you have to hire for these 10 problems. That's why you have to start there and then hire accordingly based on what you discover along the way. If you go and proactively hire, you're probably going to either overhire or hire skills that you don't need. And it's not easy to be in that situation. So you always start with, this is the problem. Let's look at it from these 3 angles or 2 angles if necessary, and then grow from there.
And just to add, right, I'd say you always start lean. You start as little as possible, right? And what you would do is you would say, look, this is, let's say my issue is I want to increase the speed with which customers repay their loans, right? They're paying too slow, they're not paying on time. It's causing them problems, it's causing us problems as an organization. So we know that we need to look into that. So in the discovery, I'll have those 3 key resources, right? And I know straight away, from experience, you know that the guys should be coming to us within 2 or 3 weeks with a couple of options, right? It should take no more than they should talk to the stakeholders, come up with some options, estimate them, and then they should come to us with solutions. If that is starting to take that too, and this is why you work sprint, right? You say this is a sprint, this is roughly what you should be doing. You'll quickly realize if something which should be taking 2 weeks is taking 4 weeks, or it's taking 6 weeks, you'll pick up on that. And it's not just about the resource isn't good, or let's say the designer isn't good. It may be that the designer is trying to come up with a solution which is absolutely amazing, where the product manager hasn't told her that this is just a really small fix, just give me something quick and dirty. It's that sort of thing, and that's where you need to coach the team and explain things to the team to better utilize your existing resources. And so I'm really big on coaching the guys. So for example, everybody that I've hired at the moment is junior, and we're trying to sort of build up their capability. And we're seeing the progress that they're making, how things that were taking them 2 weeks before is maybe now taking them 3 or 4 days. So you see that. But then you look at, okay, so it's called capacity planning and velocity, right? So you're looking at velocity, you're seeing velocity. If it's not in line with your expectations, you know that you need to hire more. And that's where I'm going to the chief commercial officer. I'm saying, because originally I hired, we had maybe a team of 5 or 6. And I'm based on this is where he's I need this up in 3 months. I was first, you're crazy. I was I'll do it for you in 6. This is the team. And then when we started to do it, the scope started increasing very quickly. So it was nothing to do with capability. It was all about scope is increasing. So we quickly identify scope is, and that's the importance of discovery, right? Scope is increasing. So when you identify these are all the different things that are going to be touched, I know that my product manager and designer are going to have to touch these 5 or 6 different areas. There's no way they're going to be able to touch 5 or 6 different areas within a week. I know each one. So you pick that up very early, you do the velocity, and then you agree the timelines. Maybe it's okay. Maybe you don't need to increase the team because you're okay with that taking 6 months. Maybe you want to do it quicker. And this is where you have the conversations with sort of the people who own the budgets to say, look, how quickly do you want this? This is the benefit. So that's how you track something like that.
If you're hiring only for the problems that you're facing now, do you think it's a bit short-sighted? Do you think that we need to hire visionaries, more of the leadership roles? How do you balance between these?
To be fair, the first thing that the guys hired was product leadership, engineering leadership, strategy. So those are the first 3 things we did. And the very first thing we did, if I take it all the way back, was the vision and commercial strategy. That was the very, very first thing we did. So we know already where we want to be in 3 years' time. We know exactly where we want to be. And then we looked at, this is the roadmap that we're going to take to get there. So this is the strategy. So from a strategy perspective, it's like, what are the big things that we need to do, like build a mobile app, build a digital onboarding journey, move into other product lines to get us to where we want to be in 3 or 4 years? We know that. Now it is, how do we deliver on that as quickly and efficiently as possible? And that's when you bring the guys in. So we did the initial sort of customer needs, what are the problems, therefore what does the strategy need to be? And actually that should shape your vision as well. So once you've done that and understood that, that's when we hired the guys to start working on our first set of problems. We test, we learn, we find the problems. Because when you're doing it, like in the new, this is the third time I'm doing it. I did it at Lloyds Banking Group, where we completely transformed the organization from waterfall to agile. The challenges there were different to the challenges where we did the exact same thing at Metro Bank, where we introduced digital. The challenges are different in different organizations. For example, Lloyds had a massive budget. They had loads of consultancies who came in and they spent a load of time saying this is the perfect way to do it. It just took too long. And it was a big team. It's the biggest bank in the UK. There were so many different teams with different sort of agendas that wanted to get involved, and they wanted to keep their role. Everyone wants to feel important, right? So they were all giving their ideas. So that was the challenge there. When we did it at Metro, it's like we had a lack of experience. In Saudi here, we're facing some of the similar. So everywhere, the problems are slightly different. But you're right, you do start with the senior leadership, and then you move through, and you test and learn.
Maybe to add on your point, Bilal, since I've gone through it with, maybe Rizal did the entire kind of story, because I've seen it end to end. Like the Saudi transformation story is a bit different too. Just to kind of second what Bilal has mentioned. Maybe in the West, some of the companies have seen some successful product transformations and say, yes, we want this. And then the people at the top at the end, they own the organization, or they have a say, the final say. They say, okay, this is what we want. And then you kind of work with the different departments to say, okay, I know your boss said this, so you better, listen to me, and let's work on the strategy of digitizing your section. Some of the companies in Saudi, and similar to Al-Raida wasn't even digital before. Nothing. Like zero. They want to call it digital a little bit, but it wasn't. That's just, bookkeeping hidden somewhere that nobody touched, so that's not digital. And I say this in the right way. So to transform the mindset from like the top level, the C-level people, to the entire organization and different teams, that could take time, and that could cause delays and the delivery timelines that you're looking at. Maybe someone will say, I want you to deliver this, but I come to organization, it's not ready fully. When you say, I want to hire these people, they know engineers are expensive, for example. When you say, I want to hire 10, oh, wait. Maybe you can do it with 2. I'll just go give you 2 and then see how it goes. So it's not always working in your favor to say, okay, now I have to work around 2 things, which is the short resources I have, and then the organization that doesn't really get it yet, and I have to spend a lot of time with them to make sure that, okay, I know you want to get there, but the way to get there is to transform. If you keep your own ways, you're not getting anywhere. So it took a lot of us, and we're seeing the end line. But this is what kind of what shapes up the Saudi market when it comes to that kind of transformation. If they're a new startup that have tried something and then transformed, they're probably digital already. They have that. But if it's a company that's been around 10, 15 years, even 7 years or 7 years old, it's hard. And it takes a lot of your time that you should be spending maybe on strategy and like shaping up the roadmap. But you have to do this. Like you cannot say, okay, I'm going to fly solo and do it on my own, because you're going to fail. They're going to fight you at every step of the way. Because they don't get it, not because they actually don't like you, for example. Just, I don't get what you're doing, so I'm going to keep putting roadblocks, either to force you to explain it to me, or I just don't get it. You have to explain this to me. If you look at, I'll use Rad as an example. You look at the teams that are non-digital teams. They're massive, because the company gets that model. Like that model, I know what I get from this team, I know what I get from that team, I know how the sales team should be like onwards of 100 salespeople, because that's the world they've been in for the past 7 years. When it comes to, I say, okay, let me digitize most of your things. Maybe you wouldn't need as many salespeople, or operations will be more efficient than this. You will have that resistance for sure. And this is part of the transformation you have to keep in mind when you go into that environment. And the flexible mindset, the focusing on and the only thing they link, or the only thing that they kind of get, I have a customer and he has or she has this problem. When you approach in that way, they get it. Okay, oh yeah, you want to solve it, you want to do this, okay, now I get you. And they start adding to it. I know the customer goes in, they give you more details, they give you more insight, they help you shape up your discovery phase. So the approach to them is also important, but it takes a bit of time. And hence we know the needs. We probably knew the needs a few months back. But we cannot really say, okay, we're going to hire everybody because at this time, at this date, I know I'm going to tackle this. I have to get the company on board first. So there's a lot that goes in the company that you have to do. A prerequisite to, once they get it, you can say, okay, now I can hire as many as I want, given that they fulfill the needs.
Yeah. And just to add, so like, I know your original question was around like hiring seniors and stuff, right? I think yes, it's important to hire experience, but I think one of the most important things to hire is capability, just somebody who can learn fast. So one of the girls in my team, she's probably like, I've worked with product managers throughout like the last 10, 12 years, and people who've got 10, 15, 20 years experience. But what she's learned in like the last 6 months, she's probably better than like 95% of them. So it's about capability, and especially even in your senior roles, right? As Ali said, like flexibility is so important. So people that are humble, for example, I came here with a lot of experience and I've done this, I know how it works, but that doesn't mean the solutions that I've got somewhere else will work here, right? So it's about being flexible, understanding that just because you've done something somewhere before, it won't necessarily work here. And then the third element is coaching and taking people on the journey with you. Like, I can't just go to my CCO or CEO and say, I need this. They're going to be like, what? They need time to get up to speed with things. So you take things slow and you evolve over time and you grow over time. Any more? Good. Done?
No questions? Yes.
Which technical did you say?
Technical background. Is it important to have technical background?
No.
For a product or for
product,
the
yeah.
tech lead?
Sorry?
For which? For the product?
Yeah, for the
Okay.
product team.
So you definitely need you need
You
technical
answered it from
experience in the tech
perspective
lead.
and
From the
then
tech
I'll
lead
answer.
perspective, and engineer from his side.
No, even on the product side, if you have
100%.
technical knowledge,
No.
I'll answer it for you,
100%.
but when you're done.
Like literally, I remember it's actually really funny. So I moved teams. So in my last job when I was at Metro Bank, I moved teams from, remember I showed you this slide, product to digital product, right? So I moved from product, where I was managing pricing, etc. And then I moved to digital product, so I was there to manage the mobile apps, internet banking platforms, and so forth. And I think it was like on my first day in the team. One of the engineers came to me, he's like, I need to show you a problem. He pulled up his screen, and there was loads of code. And I was like, never do this ever again. I don't understand a word of it. I don't understand any of it. So no, you don't. What you need to be able to do is, like, I think the most important thing in product is literally just being able to communicate, being able to understand sort of problems and communicate those effectively, and understand exactly what a problem is, and come up with ideas and work with people on solutions. That's sort of the most important things. Look, I can't say it won't help.
Let me add to your point. Like, I'm the engineer. If I have a product who hasn't seen like your situation, I probably will not work with you for a while. Like at that stage, I've shown you a code. You said, "Show me this again," or just okay, I'll do it.
I'll
myself.
leave now.
No. No, but it's a plus. It's not a must. Like, you're a product. If you have an engineering background, that's the dream team. Like, you have some. Like, I'm gonna throw some words at you. If you don't get them all the time, like, build up the knowledge. That's fine. But there will be some technical conversations going on with these three people. It has to be. So it would help. It's a plus that you have that knowledge. You kind of understand this and that. What a microservice is. What do you mean by Kubernetes? How do we approach it? Because this plays a factor in the feasibility of what we're delivering. Is it a must? No. You can always ask questions. Like if I throw a term at the product that we have, and they say, okay, I don't understand this. That's okay. Let's go. Let's understand it. You might come as a product and you throw a business term at me. I have no idea what that means. And this happens a lot because we deal with financials and balances of different kinds. For now, I don't understand all of it. And I always go to the product and say, what do you mean by this again? So there's always that back and forth. And then it's, again, within the business you operate in. You should share the knowledge. You bring in your technical skills. The product will bring in their business and insights. But again, there has to be some information sharing. You should get some of the terminology an engineer throw at you, and vice versa. The engineer should know what a loan balance is or should know what an interest is. So it becomes more effective. But it's not a prerequisite. You have to build it within.
But I suppose just to add one thing that is a must, the ability to learn and the capability to learn. Because you may not need to know the technicals when you come into the role, but when the engineers are building your solutions, you need to understand, you need to be able to learn and to understand how they're building it so that you build that knowledge so that when there is an issue, when somebody asks you, oh, this is an issue, you know that this interacts with this, so therefore this is where the problem needs to be. And today we've talked to you about a lot of ideals, right? This is what it should be, right? But that's not how it is in reality. So what you need to be able to do is learn so that, let's say on the tech side, when we talked about they should be working together on solutions, maybe the tech guy, for example, he won't know exactly what your issue is, but you go to him and say, look, I've got an issue with this element. I'm pretty sure the issue is either here or here. He can quickly look into it and identify it for you. So you need to, and then also, I've been in this situation before where I've said I need to build X, and someone's told me it's going to take you this long and this much, and I was like, are you crazy? It's one change to this field. Like, you need to be able to learn that, and that comes from just capability. And so I can't code. When he shows me anything, my mind goes blank. But you need to be able to learn more architecture and how things interact.
And then it goes the other way too. We had often some situations that we get something from the product. I need X, Y, Z. An engineer looks at it and says, do you really need X, Y, Z? You probably don't need X, Y, Z. You need something else. But you framed it in a way that is not really conveying what you want me to do. So having that mutual understanding of what you're building, both ends, will help identify where the miscommunication or misalignment could happen unintentional. Because I know I told you to do this for me. It's clear why I need it and all of that, but then an engineer will give you a feedback to say, maybe this is not what you want. I know the system. Maybe you're looking for Y instead of X. And that kind of spins up some useful conversations we have on taking a requirement that has 20, 30 lines to mission it into 20, or let's say around 5 asks. So it's always kind of beneficial to have that. In both ends, not just on the product side for engineering. Even the engineer should know what the product they're involved with.
Any other questions?
طيب احنا ممكن اوف ستيج تمام اذا احد
شو موجودين.
اكبر تحيه شكرا جزيلا والله.
شكرا